You know that moment when everything is finally coming together, when success is within your grasp, and then you do it again. You sabotage yourself. You make the one decision that unravels everything you've worked for. And as you watch your carefully constructed empire crumble, you wonder why you always do this to yourself. Why, at the moment of triumph, you become your own worst enemy. Machiavelli understood something about human nature that most people refuse to acknowledge. He saw that we are not rational creatures pursuing our best interests. We are complex beings driven by unconscious forces, ancient fears, and shadow projections that we barely comprehend. When he wrote about the necessity of being both lion and fox, he wasn't just talking about political strategy. He was describing the internal war that rages within every ambitious soul. You destroy your own success because success terrifies you more than failure ever could. Failure is familiar. Failure is safe. You know how to be the underdog, the victim, the one fighting against impossible odds. But success? Success requires you to step into an identity you've never fully inhabited. It demands that you own your power, your worth, your right to occupy space at the top. And that terrifies the wounded child within you who learned long ago that visibility equals vulnerability. Think about it. Every time you've been on the verge of a breakthrough, what story did you tell yourself? That you didn't deserve it? That you were a fraud about to be exposed? That others were more qualified, more worthy, more legitimate? These aren't just random thoughts. They're the voice of your shadow speaking, the part of your psyche that Jung identified as containing all the aspects of yourself you've rejected or denied. Your shadow believes that success will reveal your inadequacy, so it convinces you to retreat before you can be discovered. Machiavelli observed that most people fail not because they lack ability, but because they cannot adapt their strategies to changing circumstances. They become rigid in their approach, committed to methods that once worked but no longer serve. You do this too, but not with external strategies. You do this with your internal relationship to success itself. You've developed such sophisticated methods for self-sabotage that they operate below your conscious awareness, automatic and efficient in their destruction. The pattern is always the same. You work tirelessly toward a goal, pushing through obstacles, overcoming challenges, proving your determination and capability. But as success approaches, as the gap between your current reality and your desired outcomes begins to close, something shifts inside you. Doubt creeps in. Fear whispers its familiar refrains. And you begin to make choices that compromise your position, that create problems where none existed, that give you reasons to retreat from the very success you claim to want. This isn't weakness. This is your psyche's attempt to maintain equilibrium, to keep you in the familiar territory of struggle and striving, rather than allowing you to enter the unknown landscape of achievement and fulfillment. Your unconscious mind has learned to associate safety with limitation, security with smallness. It would rather keep you in a prison you understand than allow you to explore a freedom that feels dangerous. But here's what Machiavelli also understood, what he tried to teach through his unflinching analysis of human nature. Self-awareness is the foundation of all power. He didn't advocate for manipulation and cruelty because he was evil. He wrote about these dynamics because he recognized that ignoring them doesn't make them disappear. It simply ensures that you remain unconscious of the forces shaping your behavior, vulnerable to patterns you don't understand and can't control. Your self-sabotage isn't random. It's purposeful, even if that purpose operates outside your conscious intention. Every time you destroy what you've built, you're trying to solve an old problem, to avoid an ancient pain, to prevent a feared outcome that probably exists more in your imagination than in reality. You're still fighting wars that ended long ago, still protecting yourself from wounds that have already healed, still operating from strategies that may have saved you once, but now only serve to limit your potential. The child in you who learned that success brought scrutiny, that achievement invited attack, that visibility led to vulnerability, is still making decisions from that outdated protective programming. That child doesn't trust your adult capacity to handle success. It doesn't believe you can maintain your integrity while holding power, your authenticity while accepting recognition, your groundedness while reaching heights you've never experienced before. So it sabotages. It creates chaos to justify retreat. It manufactures problems to validate the familiar story that success is dangerous, that you're safer in struggle, that your worth is tied to your wounds rather than your accomplishments. And each time you unconsciously choose destruction over achievement, you reinforce this limiting belief, making it more likely that you'll repeat the pattern the next time opportunity presents itself. Machiavelli wrote that it's better to be feared than loved, but what he really meant was that it's dangerous to depend on others' approval for your security. He understood that external validation is unreliable, that public opinion shifts like wind, that basing your worth on how others perceive you is a recipe for instability and anxiety. Yet this is exactly what you do when you sabotage your success out of fear of judgment, criticism, or the responsibility that comes with achievement. You're so afraid of what others might think if you truly succeed that you ensure they never have the chance to form those opinions. You stay small, not because you lack ambition, but because you're terrified of the exposure that comes with expansion. You destroy your own success because you believe it's better to fail on your own terms than to risk being rejected, criticized, or found inadequate after reaching the heights you claim to desire. This is projection at its most destructive. You assume that others will respond to your success the way your wounded parts respond to it, with skepticism, resentment, or the need to tear it down. You project your own ambivalence about achievement onto the world around you, creating elaborate scenarios of judgment and attack that exist primarily in your imagination. And then you act as if these imagined threats are real, sabotaging yourself to avoid confrontations that probably would never occur. But what if your fear of success isn't really about success at all? What if it's about integration? Jung taught that the goal of psychological development is individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating all aspects of the self, including those we've rejected or denied. Perhaps your self-sabotage is your psyche's clumsy attempt to prevent you from outgrowing parts of yourself you're not ready to leave behind. The struggling version of you, the one who fights against odds and pushes through obstacles, has an identity. It knows who it is, how to behave, what to expect. But the successful version of you? That's unknown territory. It requires you to develop new aspects of your personality, to integrate capacities you've never needed before, to become someone you've never been. And change, even positive change, activates our deepest fears of loss and disorientation. So you sabotage not just your external achievements, but your internal evolution. You keep yourself in familiar patterns of struggle because growth feels like death, the death of who you've been, even if who you've been has been limiting and painful. You choose the devil you know over the angel you might become, because at least the devil feels predictable, manageable, safe. Machiavelli understood that true power requires the integration of seemingly opposite qualities. The successful prince must be both compassionate and ruthless, both generous and calculating, both trusting and suspicious. These aren't contradictions to be resolved, but polarities to be held in dynamic tension. Similarly, your path to sustainable success requires you to integrate your capacity for both vulnerability and strength, both humility and confidence, both caution and boldness. The part of you that sabotages success isn't your enemy. It's a protective mechanism that has served important functions in your development. It has kept you safe from real or imagined threats, helped you navigate environments where success might have been dangerous, and maintained your connection to aspects of your identity that you fear losing. But what once protected you now imprisons you, and what once served your survival now limits your expansion. The key isn't to eliminate this protective part, but to dialogue with it, to understand its concerns, to negotiate new agreements about how to proceed. Your sabotaging tendency needs to know that you can handle success without losing your authenticity, that you can achieve your goals without abandoning your values, that you can expand your influence without compromising your integrity. It needs evidence that the mature, conscious version of you can be trusted with power and recognition. This requires a fundamental shift in how you relate to success itself. Instead of viewing achievement as something that happens to you, something external that validates or threatens your worth, you must begin to see it as something that emerges from you, as the natural result of aligning your actions with your values, your efforts with your purpose, your conscious intentions with your unconscious drives. Machiavelli's most profound insight wasn't about political strategy, but about psychological reality. Those who succeed in the long term are those who understand themselves deeply enough to predict and manage their own reactions to changing circumstances. They know their triggers, their blind spots, their patterns of self-defeat. They recognize that their greatest enemy isn't external opposition, but internal inconsistency, the gap between what they consciously desire and what they unconsciously fear. Your self-sabotage is a form of unconscious communication, your psyche's way of telling you that something in your approach to success doesn't align with your deeper truth. Perhaps you're pursuing achievements that don't reflect your authentic values. Perhaps you're seeking external validation for internal wounds that can only be healed through self-acceptance. Perhaps you're trying to prove your worth through accomplishment, rather than recognizing your inherent value regardless of what you achieve. The path forward isn't to force yourself to stop sabotaging. That's just another form of internal violence that will eventually backfire. Instead, you must become curious about the function your self-sabotage serves, compassionate toward the parts of yourself that feel the need to destroy what you create, and committed to creating a new relationship with success that honors both your ambition and your humanity. Success isn't the enemy of your authenticity. Unconscious success is. When you pursue achievement without understanding why you want it, without considering how it aligns with your deeper purpose, without preparing yourself psychologically for the changes it will bring, you set yourself up for the very sabotage you fear. But when you approach success as a tool for service, as a means of expressing your gifts more fully, as an opportunity to contribute to something larger than yourself, it becomes less threatening and more sustainable. Machiavelli wrote that fortune favors the bold, but he also understood that boldness without wisdom is merely recklessness. True boldness, the kind that leads to lasting success, requires the integration of courage and consciousness, ambition and awareness, drive and discernment. It requires you to pursue your goals while simultaneously examining your motivations, to strive for achievement while remaining grounded in your values, to expand your influence while deepening your integrity. The moment you stop seeing success and authenticity as opposing forces and start viewing them as complementary aspects of a fully realized life, your need to sabotage begins to diminish. When achievement becomes an expression of who you are, rather than a compensation for who you think you're not, when recognition becomes a byproduct of service, rather than a validation of worth, when power becomes a tool for contribution, rather than a defense against vulnerability, success stops feeling like a threat to your identity and starts feeling like its natural expression. Your pattern of self-sabotage is trying to teach you something essential about the relationship between your conscious goals and your unconscious fears. It's asking you to examine whether what you're pursuing truly serves your highest good or merely satisfies your wounded ego. It's inviting you to consider whether your definition of success aligns with your authentic nature or conflicts with it in ways that make self-destruction feel necessary. This is the profound psychological work that Machiavelli's political insights point toward. The recognition that external success without internal alignment is ultimately unsustainable, that power without self-knowledge is dangerous, that achievement without integration leads inevitably to self-defeat. Your task isn't to overcome your humanity in pursuit of success, but to succeed in a way that honors and expresses your full humanity. The next time you feel the familiar urge to sabotage what you've built, pause, breathe. Ask yourself what this impulse is trying to protect you from, what it's trying to communicate, what it needs from you. Listen to its concerns without immediately dismissing them. Consider whether your current path toward success truly serves your deeper purpose, or whether it needs to be adjusted to better align with your authentic values and aspirations. Remember that the goal isn't to eliminate all fear or doubt. These are natural responses to growth and change. The goal is to develop a conscious relationship with these feelings so they inform your choices rather than control them. You can feel afraid and still move forward. You can experience doubt and still maintain faith in your path. You can acknowledge your limitations while still pursuing your potential. Machiavelli's greatest lesson isn't about how to manipulate others, but about how to understand and work skillfully with the complex forces within yourself. Your success isn't threatened by external enemies, but by internal conflicts you haven't yet resolved. Your greatest power lies not in controlling others, but in mastering the art of self-awareness, self-acceptance, and conscious choice. When you stop fighting yourself and start working with yourself, when you stop trying to override your humanity and start expressing it more fully, success becomes not something you have to protect yourself from, but something you can finally allow yourself to embody and enjoy.